The 28th of August, Rabbi Levitt, Horeb.
Wow. The reliance on that image that other people have formed of him is so profound that people often do not mind defacing their own selves, who do not care about Hashem's and their own judgment of themselves, nevertheless are prepared to go to any lengths in order to preserve that image unsustained. Okay, well, he's saying that it sounds like he's saying that it's a fact. It does, maybe he doesn't mean to say that's the desired, he doesn't mean to say that's the desired goal, that a person should make such a big deal out of that. Okay.
Not knowing.
But then he says in the end, this honor, however objectionable the motives, becomes. Oh, Lou, we're chewing over this first section over here, 386. On page 261, we started a new chapter here. This honor, however objectionable, is 5 lines from the bottom of that section, becomes not infrequently a spur to duty, and ultimately it will make for real virtue. When the person progressing from appreciation of the opinion of others to respect for Hashem's and his own opinion, then he learns to love his duty for its own sake and his God-given task. I'm not sure how that works. I would have. I don't know. He said. That's what he says. That's what I think he say. That this concern for what other people think of him will not infrequently spur him to duty, meaning to do the right thing. It'll be a real virtue, because he says, when the person progressing from appreciation of the opinion of others to respect for Hashem's and his own opinion, learns to love his duty for its own sake and his God-given task. Okay. Those are the words.
So is that in essence saying in order for one to serve Hashem, one has to appreciate himself so that he could, fulfill Hashem's commandments and, do what is right in Hashem's eyes, sort of say.
Okay, he learns to love his duty for its own sake as his God-given task.
I mean, if someone doesn't feel good about himself, he's not going to honor others either, or especially Hashem, even if one doesn't feel good about himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Sounds like this last thing I'm reading over again, that once he has a respect for Hashem's opinion, and then he'll then have a love for his duty that Hashem gave him, because he has a respect for Hashem's opinion, and that's what Hashem gave him to do. Okay, I guess he'll develop this his thoughts over here further. He's got a few good more pages to develop his his thoughts over here. So we go to 387, and we go to Mayor to continue the reading, please.
Okay. 387 says the honor is not an important part of life, of the joy of life. It is even a spur to virtue and its guardian, and you must therefore respect the human being in his honor, in this image of him, and not kill this image, thus endangering the precious and sacred possessions which derive from it. You must not speak disparagingly of it, even if what you say is true, even if the image were better than the reality. You ought to rejoice in it and not become its executioner, just as you are not allowed to kill somebody already sentenced to death. You should rejoice in it and not deprive the person of what is perhaps his last spur to being good. It is tantamount to defamation. If you only draw attention to some evil trait in your fellow man, or even if you only let it be known that you could say something disparagingly about him if you wished.
Oh, this is a fascinating thing what he's saying over here. This honor that he spoke about before, which we weren't 100% sure about exactly what it was, but it's a spur, like he said, it's a spur to virtue, and it guards the person's virtue, and so therefore the honor that a person has, meaning I think, like Mayor said, the honor that he has is the honor that he has for himself, that he views himself as a worthy person. And therefore, and that is what this, that he views himself as a worthy person because he believes that other people view him in that way as well. And that's nurturing and feeding and supporting his view of himself, what he took from what other people or how other people act towards him. So therefore, that is a great spur to him to continue to do things that are good and to guard from doing things that are not. And he says, Rev Hirsch, therefore, that you have to have great respect for this honor and this person's image of himself as being a worthy and honorable person. And chas v'sholom to do anything to take down that person's positive image of himself. You should rejoice in it and not deprive the person of what is perhaps his last spur to being good. So even if what you're saying to him in criticizing him is absolutely true, and even if his image of himself is really much bigger than and much more impressive than the reality of the situation, he says you should not rejoice in it and not become its executioner. Because if you do so, yeah. So don't it's tantamount to defamation if you only draw attention to some evil trait in your fellow man. Okay. Very, very interesting. 388. Please, Lou, read for us.
But not only the individual's life and happiness, the welfare and good will of all depend on the detailed image of his fellow man, which one human being carries in his mind, that image which shows him his brother, not only generally, but in his particular relation to himself, as an expression of what he means, and will mean in future to him and to everything that he calls his own. For on these details depends the blessing of all blessings, peace. If that image is friendly and does not spell harm and danger to one's own sphere, then man will join his fellow man as a friend, will readily grant him his place beside himself on God's earth, will rejoice in his prospering by his side, enjoy his prosperity as though it were his own. Everyone will live undisturbed for his own destiny, will help and be helped, and small groups as well as larger communities will present the picture which Hashem intended when he created the world, the picture of untroubled development of communal life, the picture of shalom, of peace. But when that image is hostile, when it shows one man destroying or menacing his brother's sphere of life, then hatred makes its appearance. Hatred which does not leave room for two human beings on God's wide earth. Hatred which sits brooding over the long buried past and ponders over impending horrors. Hatred which fills the hater with utter disregard for his own life so long as the hated person lives. Hatred which wills the destruction of the hater if only the object of its hatred goes down with it. Then God's blessings are all wasted, for man turns them into curses, and shalom has fled. Instead of entwining themselves into a garland of peace in which each rejoices to adorn the other, to add beauty to the other's life with his own life, people confront each other in hostile thorns, hatching plans for mutual destruction. The chain which should join one human being to the other is broken. God's world is destroyed. Hatred and discord hold sway at man's own invitation and generate robbery and murder and evil without end. And this will happen everywhere and in the all-embracing circle of all mankind, or in the smaller communities the world over, in a country, a city, a community, a family, a house, or an intimate companionship which comprises two human minds.
Okay. So the way I'm looking at it is that up until now, in the last two sections, he was talking about the person's positive image of himself and how person number two shouldn't do anything to damage that positive image, because that positive image in the person number one about himself, it fosters his positivity and productivity and doing good things as opposed to doing the opposite. So now we're talking about how person number one has the obligation to just like he looks at himself in a positive way, he should look at his person number two. He should also look at him also in a positive way. That's the focus of this paragraph over here. And the first paragraph in this section said if he does that, so then there'll be shalom. But when the image of Jew number one towards Jew number two is hostile, that's what his subject matter is in the second paragraph of this section. So then there comes to be a animosity between two people, and then of course it's very not good. Hatred which fills the hater with utter disregard for his own life, so long as the hated person lives. It wills the destruction. It's such a strong hatred. It wills the destruction of the hater. If of destruction of the hater, hatred which wills the destruction of the hater, if only the object of its hatred goes down with it. His hatred is so severe and so uncontrollable that he's even willing to sacrifice his own well-being if he can also take down the other persons that he has a hatred for. He can take him down with him. Chas v'shalom. And then, of course, Hashem's blessings are all wasted. Man turns all his own blessings into curses because Shalom has fled. And Shalom has fled. Two people, they have the ability to complement one another, to rejoice and adorn one another, to add beauty to the other one's life with his own life. But instead of that, if they do the opposite, so then it creates a destruction. And this is true in a community, in a city, in a family, in a house, or two very close friends. Okay, 389. Back to Alan. Alan, you want to read 389? Alan? No. Mayor, would you like to read 389?
389. If thus God's law is visited upon you when you cast a slur on your brother's image as it lives in another's mind, that is to say, when you slander a person's reputation, threefold woe will it call upon you when you turn yourself into a messenger of evil and tell somebody what hateful things a third person has said or thought about him, when you wipe out the friendly features of the brother's image and make them look hostile, or even when you only help to preserve the hostile features instead of trying to transform them gradually into more friendly ones. Threefold woe upon you if you, by means of the truth, drive away peace from country and city, family and house, from two human souls who would have lived peacefully without you, or would soon have regained peace with the help of your good services. Woe upon you! You stand forth as an enemy of human happiness, an enemy of God's universe. You are the curse of your community. You have annihilated unity and peace, trust and love, those foundations of human society. And you leave in your wake hatred and discord, strife, vengeance, disaster, and crime. You must vanish from human society, for otherwise happiness will never return. Take care, therefore, not to become a Korach in your sphere.
So Rav Hirsch was describing Korach.
Yeah, wow.
All right. But I saw that Rav Hirsch, when he was talking about this, he said threefold. The last line on page 262: a threefold woe upon you if you, and then he says, by means of the truth. What you're saying is, technically speaking, is absolutely true. If you judge truth by, just is the right? You're just saying what Plony said about Almoni. You're saying to this is Rechilus, that Jew number one comes to Jew number two, and he says, "Do you know what Jew?" He turns to Jew number two and he says, "Do you know what Jew number three said about you? Do you know what he's planning to do against you?" And so Jew number one thinks that what Jew number three is saying is he knows it to be true. He heard Jew number three say it. He wasn't dreaming. He didn't make it up. It's absolutely true what he's saying. But if he's going to go over and say this true thing that Jew number three said about Jew number two, and he's going to go and tell Jew number two about it, that's called Rechilus. And this drives away peace from country and city, family and house. Now he mentions over here Korach. Not sure that we could say that Korach, what he was saying was truthful, but okay, but it did have it was doing the same thing that what Rav Hirsch is describing over here. What I'm getting from Rav Hirsch is he's extolling, even if what you're saying is absolutely true. It's going to cause the same thing that Korach caused.
Right.
Okay. Now, of course, there are things that are permissible for Jew number one to say that Jew number three is right. That's the story of Gedaliah, when they came and told Gedaliah that Yishmael was coming to kill him. So that was totally permissible for that person to say that, because not that. Because Gedaliah needed to protect himself. He needed to take measures to protect himself from the possibility that what this Jew was telling him was maybe it's true. So we don't mean to say that all cases of telling over what Jew number three is planning to say or do, or what he already said or he already did to Jew number two is usher to say, but we're talking about the cases where there's no justification for it to be said. It's not said in order to protect the person. Okay. 390. And we go to Lou to continue the reading on section 390. On page 263.
Seeing how terrible is the sin of slander, how harmful to human life and virtue, to happiness and peace, will you nevertheless be careless with your tongue? Say what you like, and should it destroy honor and peace, try to excuse yourself by saying you did not mean any harm? You had slandered only out of thoughtlessness, for fun, without evil intentions. Is it permissible for human beings thus to trifle with human happiness and peace? More deadly than a sharpened arrow, that lenders words, and yet if that arrow hits the target and kills, you will coldly find comfort in saying, but I did but trifle. For thousands of years, wisdom has uttered its warning against this, and the warning has gone unheeded. For thousands of years, the slanderer has been branded by your wise fathers as one who denies God, because he repudiates the judge who passes judgment on words and thoughts, however fleeting. Has the slander been declared to be worse than idolatry, lewdness, and murder? Has the slander been denied the right to peace in the next world because it has murdered peace in this world? But in vain has it been thus decried, denounced, and judged for thousands of years. For no other sin is today more rampant than this one. Young men and young women who want to become strong for a truly Jewish life begin this struggle upwards by shunning just this sin, precisely because it is so widespread, so easy to commit, because it is thought to be so unimportant, and the opportunities for it are so frequent. And yet it is so pernicious, so terrible. But the master of our be the master of your own tongue, the divine word. May it be devoted only to wise, reasonable, and wholesome speech. And if you are unable to speak in that manner, remain silent. Learn to keep silent. Young men and women of my people, learn to keep silent, even at the risk of being rejected as boring company, because your tongue is not glib enough wittily to hold up to the public your brethren's weaknesses and defects, foolishness and faults. Rather be poor company than kill for fun the honor and peace of a fellow man. Social gatherings, certainly it is something fine if people foregather, free from the selfish pursuits of their jobs, and revive their public spirit, which had suffered from being preoccupied with individual material interests by discussing in general matters of common interest, conversation matters of common interest. It is splendid if in this way the social gathering brings man nearer to his fellow man and teaches people that they are all brethren. Then social gatherings are small communities, and together they make up the universal community of human society. But if instead of being free from selfish pursuits, one carries that selfishness into the social gathering, letting it run riot there, instead of in a friendly spirit forgoing brotherly ties, the small mind for the aggrandizement of its significant self belittles his brother to the extent of annihilating him. If self-complacency at the expense of another is the only factor which holds the company together, and one panders to it by assassinating an absent person's honor and peace, while making note of faults in the present company to serve for future amusement of others. Young men and women, such gatherings in which people wickedly amuse themselves for fun, such gatherings you must avoid. They are the ruin of society. You must show yourself incapable of joining in such games. And in order not to slander your neighbor, you must avoid altogether speaking of him in company, not even well. Indeed, one might say, avoid the latter more than anything else. Speaking of trifles, you might still hope that your words may remain unnoticed by wicked minds. But by speaking well of your fellow man, you make him the target of envy, which, to counterbalance the good that you have uttered, will produce from its armory 1,000 evil things about your fellow man. I think our time is up.
Our time is up. Okay. Yashikoya to everybody.
Very
Have a
nice.
great day, Mayor.
Thank you so much, and all of you should have a good day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Amen. Okay, we'll be back soon.
Okay.
So to votes.
Okay.